Hi everyone, I'm Alana Campbell from You Have a Life Plan and Support Their Light, a service for parents with sensitive kids. And with Master Yan, the founder of RestoreChi in town, I thought I would add some things to my Autism Binder and just kind of do like a Coles Notes updated version of my binder so that you can see these are the services that I use for my kids and why I think they might be helpful for families with autistic children. So if I first go to this article in my binder, which is highlighting a case that my teacher worked on. So she worked with the parent of a child with autism. The parent actually applies the treatments herself and then consults with my teacher to figure out, okay, what is the best treatment to do for this child? And then she has a prescription that she's using right now. And then that'll change as the child improves in some areas and then shows other symptoms, because it's kind of like an onion that unpeels. And we don't have to heal our children right now. It's a journey that we're on with them, trying to help them offload a bit so life is a bit easier, so they can learn about themselves, so we can learn, and all of that. So this is something that we could do together where I can share with you as much as I know. I've been studying Esogetic Medicine for about 3 years, but I don't have as much experience as my teacher does. So like we may get to a point together where it's like, okay, that's enough, or we may want to do more, and then we could hire my teacher on as a case review, and then she can guide us on other things that I may not have thought of just because of the lack of experience. So that's one thing. And now if we move to working with Master Yan. So here are a few articles that I had written, and I just want to share about my articles. Like when I write from a perspective of, wow, I just discovered this thing, and oh my God, the way the world works is totally upside down and all this stuff. So this is my process. Sometimes my process can offend others because they're living a different process. And if I offend you, that's not my intention. My intention is just to kind of show you what I'm discovering as I go so that you can see what is available. And if it resonates with you, then great. And if not, well, let's just leave it at that. And I just, I'm not going to go back and edit everything so that it's friendly, because I don't think that's possible. I think I'm going to offend someone no matter what I say. So just trust that, I'm on a journey too. I'm healing my own trauma too. We're all on this journey in very different ways. Okay, so here are 3 articles. This article here is called Inspired IVF, Autism, and Helping People Heal. And so I just turned the page over so that you can see a photo of, this is Master Yan here, and this is me holding my daughter. And this is what a treatment would be like. He's assessing her. He's going to balance her yin yang, up, down, left, right, front, back, maybe clear congestion in her head or wherever. And so I just want people to see this is how simple it is. And then in this article, I highlight what the experiences that 2 autistic children have had and my daughter who was conceived via IVF. And then I also kind of say in this article, so I've included this article, which is this one here, which I go more into what happened on this autistic child's first visit. And so you get kind of like, what did Master Yan see in this one child and what did he balance? And then he actually, when I witnessed him treating this one child, that's when I realized, okay, I'm going to bring my child who was conceived via IVF in, because a lot of this has to do with the prenatal period and, the quality inside the womb and all that kind of stuff. And so because my child was conceived via IVF and I had a very challenging pregnancy, which I'll get into more, I knew that he could do something for my daughter too. And so I brought my daughter in after he saw this autistic child. And when he treated my daughter, he started to understand autism more. And so then he called back the autism child and my daughter to further treat them. And so that's what this 3rd article is about, where basically he realized that my daughter had congestion between her eyes because most of her issue is visual and taking in visual information. Her left eye actually takes in no information unless she wears her glasses. It just turns in when she's stressed or trying to hide something, which is another form of stress. And then he realized the child with autism actually has similar congestion between both sides of the brain. So he's working on clearing these things and building tools to continue the clearing when the child is at home. So I'm also going to include links to these articles in the description of this video, as well as this article here, the story behind RestoreChi, so you can understand how Master Yan discovered that he could heal people and yeah, so that'll be there. And also I'll include an article written by a mother who brought her 2 kids to see Master Yan and the amazing difference that she saw, but what she suggests to parents in terms of supporting your kids afterwards so they can retain their gains. So she's going to come back and do it better next time. So she's sharing her experience with the readers. So this is something that I do as well, mostly for me, because it's a lot of dietary changes and supplements, and I don't like to force that on anybody. But as an adult, I can choose that for myself. But, every family is different. Every child is different. So the medical medium does have a theory on autism and ADHD, and he has some suggestions. And if you contact Rosemary Shara, who's my medical medium practitioner, she's really good at saying, okay, medical medium suggests like these 30 things to do. These are the 2 that are the most important. Here's where you source good quality of that. This is the good price and all that stuff. So she really, medical medium is amazing information, but if you're trying to eat the elephant whole, it's hard. So Rosemary helps you figure out, okay, this is how I would start. And if it's not enough, then I would add a couple more things. And she has saved me from internal shingles and tremors and all kinds of stuff. She's really, really amazing. Okay. So that's another thing. So this Dr. Rachel Carson, she's a chiropractor, and we have all these reflexes, primitive reflexes that we're supposed to release in infancy. Basically, it's like if this world is safe, we release our reflexes to defend ourselves. But if we don't feel safe for whatever reason, we don't release these reflexes. And so she can test to see which of these reflexes are still retained and give parents exercises they can do with their kids. So like she gave me like this little paintbrush where you can like stroke their face in a certain way or stroke their hands in a certain way to get them to release those primitive reflexes so that they're not so scared and so automatically programmed to defend. And it just helps them live easier. So, and I'll get to it when we go back to esogetics, but basically things happen to us and we store them. And the more we store, it's like indigestion. We're not able to digest that out and eat the next meal and feel good. So, okay, continuing on. This is another practitioner that I have taken my daughter to see and I've seen myself, and I'm planning on taking my son to see. So it's Jeff at Clovers, and what he does is he muscle tests to see like how is the circulation in different areas of the body, how is the congestion, how is the capacity, what nutrients are lacking, and he will recommend supplements or vitamins. And you don't have to take those supplements or buy those vitamins. You can just take it as information and say, okay, this is interesting. He also does acupressure in a certain point. So he'll do like 3 or 4 points where he'll put a bit of pressure and it will be sore. And then that will help move the circulation and congestion as well. And so, you don't have to take the supplements. My daughter was recommended 3 supplements. We bought them. 1, she tried a couple times, but she refuses to take. And 2, she feels so much better when she takes them that she asks for them. We don't do it daily because it's just a lot of work to, blend up a smoothie and hide the supplements in them and everything. But we do the best we can. And so this is an option for you. And I think when children are struggling or when they're nonverbal or they can't just explain what's going on, the more information we can get about how they're functioning, the better. Because there's so many ways to fix things, but we need the information to know what to fix. Okay, so as we return to Esogetic Medicine, on the left, these are treatments for birth, and these are prenatal treatments. And you don't have to understand what's there, but just to spend a little bit of time here. So basically, how our children experience the prenatal phase kind of encodes what their life experience is going to be like, and then they re-experience it at birth in a very intense way, and then they re-experience it through their childhood and then through their adulthood. And so part of this is good because part of this is their life path, and part of this is extra weight for them to carry that we can like relieve them of some of it. So for my children, with my son, my firstborn, I ate a lot of garbage when I was pregnant with him. That's how I coped with being pregnant. And during the birth process, I didn't want to take any pain meds, but it was very painful. So I did take the epidural. And then they said, you can control your epidural. So I turned it up and up and up and up and up. And in the end, he sat engaged for hours. I don't know how many hours. He just sat there ready to go. But because I had the epidural so high, I didn't know I needed to push. And I think it did some damage to his head formation because he sat engaged. He destroyed my pelvic floor. He destroyed my bladder just because, I was bleeding through a catheter. And this has caused him harm. So he has trouble falling asleep. He has trouble waking up. He has trouble doing things like knowing he's ready. So basically, because he sat so long in that birth canal phase, he doesn't emerge until he knows he's fully ready, which on one hand is good. He started reading at age 8 or 9, but then he was really ready. Same with riding a bike. He started riding a bike, let's say at age 7 or 8, where his little sister started at like 5 or 6 because she's different. So, and now he has like cellulite on his belly. He eats garbage. All of that is my fault. That I didn't know any better. And a lot of us don't know any better until we discover this is the outcome of our actions. And he was also induced. All 3 of my children were induced. He was 41 weeks late. My daughters, I'll get to, I was so sick in their pregnancies that I just wanted them out of my body. So I induced my middle child at 39 weeks, my last child at 37 and a half. I was so sick and I just didn't have the patience, and it was taking a toll on my family, and I just wanted to get these kids out. But inducing our children with Pitocin and all this stuff is not ideal. It's known to cause eye problems, and our middle child has eye problems. Okay. Now, if I go back to my second child conceived via IVF, so in that IVF process, the doctors are really evaluating those embryos to see, is this a good enough embryo to transfer? Is it worth the transfer? And they suggested that she's not worth the transfer, and I didn't care. I had one terrible round. All the embryos died because I don't actually react to those synthetic hormones as they expected, or my eggs don't. So anyways, I transferred her anyways with 2 others, and obviously she survived. But she is very sensitive to judgment. And I think this is because at a cellular level, judgment was her life or death. And not just that, when I was pregnant with her, I was so sick. So I laid in the fetal position every night saying, just kill me. I want to die. I can't take this anymore. Get this kid out of me. Then when she was born, other things happened in the pregnancy. Lots of things happened. But when she was born, her and I swelled up and became very itchy. So we couldn't even bond. Like I was just like, get this child off of me. And so it's just been a horrible experience for her because she got swollen. Her eye turned sideways. And my dad was like, well, at least we can get plastic surgery for her. And then there's more judgment, right? And so it's very hard for this poor little being, doesn't know how to process information. So she stores it in all the cells of her body, and we're working on it. And it's a journey. And it lets us understand the ways in which we do life that don't work for everybody. That's why I feel like these children are all reacting. And so if I look at my youngest, because my second child was conceived via IVF, and they said our chances of getting pregnant were less than 5%, even with all the bells and whistles, we didn't think we could get pregnant. Suddenly we turned up pregnant. And because I had such a bad second pregnancy, I literally said, and I'm not proud of it, that if there's anything wrong with this child, I want to abort, because I just didn't want to go through that process and then end up with a child who's going to suffer. So I went to every appointment saying, if there's anything wrong with this child, I'm going to abort. Nothing was ever wrong with her. She was super strong, all this stuff. Born, even though she was born so early, she actually had an umbilical hernia, which Master Yan healed from a distance because they wanted to do surgery if it didn't correct itself. And so she was born immature. Even her tailbone is a little bit off. We're correcting it now with chiro. And that actually is a sign that the birth is a little bit off. I forced her into this world too quick because I just didn't want to take the pregnancy anymore. It was a toll on our family. So now she fights like hell. And both my daughters have separation issues. And, it's kind of my fault, but not. We don't know any better. These are the mainstream ways of doing things. These are the choices we're given. We choose them, and then we realize, oh, wow, there's a consequence to that my child and I am paying for. There's a lot of children who are born via IVF, and then their parents, they wanted them so badly, and then they complain about how hard it is to have these children, and there's a reason for it. So, and also, I do think that I was so sick in all these pregnancies because I took psychiatric meds, because I had a history of mental health issues, and then I took all the hormones. Like, my body was full of garbage, and then they were grown in garbage. And so, like, no wonder we're all suffering. So these are, like I said, these are treatments for if it was a struggling birth, and this is treatment for the prenatal time. So if you knew there were certain times in the prenatal, like, I took Tamiflu at a certain time because I had the flu. So that would be the 6-month mark. So I know that there was prenatal issues with my middle child as well. And then I was just going to speak to something here because I find it interesting that when I think about children who have autism, the majority of them have a parent who's a teacher, which is kind of interesting, that I think these kids are trying to teach the teachers who are teaching the children that we need to do things differently, because forcing children through this system is not working for a lot of these children. So here, this treatment for birth is done with brainwaves. Brainwaves cannot be used on children under 9 because they don't cycle into all the brainwaves yet until they're about 10. So they're not in beta, which is the learning phase. Before age 6, they're in a hypnagogic state. So we're actually programming them instead of letting them have an ability to say, I want that in, I don't want that in. So they're very vulnerable under 6, and we're sending them to school. And so I wanted to speak to that. I also want to speak to, I went to my grade 2, my middle child's class, and they had this math problem they were supposed to do, and it was 2 digits, plus or minus 2 digits, but they were written linearly, so not the numbers on top of each other. And the way she solves it is just guessing. And so I put the 2 numbers on top of each other, and I showed her she can use the columns. And then the teacher came by and said, oh, we don't do it that way because we're sitting on the carpet and they have to do it all in their head and they have to know placement. And then we do friendly numbers, and it just gets so complicated. And my daughter has a sensory processing issue, and her information comes in very disorganized. So the way she's coping with it is guessing. And the thing about math is it's very similar to the birthing process. So we are supposed to struggle through that canal and birth, and it's something we accomplished with our mother. We got out, right? And we're doing all these interventions to try and do it better.